the most informative study that I found, and this is when I was just like, all right, I'm done. We're in, like 100%, was there was a study that showed of all these older men that went into the hospital. They measured all these different things. And at the time of admission, the one thing that was more informative of their in-hospital mortality, dying in the hospital, that admission, or their overall mortality was testosterone level at the time of admission, much more than age. So just think about that. Just that one number of where their testosterone was at was much more informative and predictive about what their long-term risk of death was going to be than anything else that they measured.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Skill Dad podcast. My name's Zach Reeser. I'm your host. If this is your first time joining us, I want to say welcome. If you're part of the Skill Dad Society, back for another episode. Hey, this is our podcast. This is where we get to learn the things that we can, add to our knowledge, but then more importantly, what we can take away and start doing and applying, because a lot of that learning is in the action of what we take. And then we can take that and teach our kids, because that's what we're fired up about, Skill Dad podcast. And I love to talk to other dads, other men who have been there, they've learned the things, and maybe they've taken it a couple of steps further so that they can educate us on some things that we need to know. And one thing I want to throw out there, looking at what I can see with the audience that's listening, a majority of you are somewhere between the age of 34 and 44. And there are some that are beyond that, a couple chapters ahead. There are some that are going to be coming up to that, but that's a majority of the bucket. And that's right where I am. So that means, presumably, if we follow trends that have happened in the last few years, in 2024, the average age of a woman to have a child was 26, more towards the 26, 27. In 1970, it was 21. So there's a number of years there. It's changed and it's continuing to go unless something shifts based on what I can find. You can fact check me and DM me and tell me all the studies that you found. Love to learn. But for men, it was 31 is now the average starting age of a parent. So think about this. At the age of 9 years old, your kid's gonna be 9, you're gonna be 40. Now, the cool thing is maybe you've advanced in your career, maybe you've advanced in your, financial life. That's all good. Now you're going to be a little bit older when your kid's still young. So we want to make sure we're staying in the game. So I've got two gentlemen on that are joining me tonight. And we're going to talk about that, talk about some of the things we can do to make sure that we're staying tip-top shape as they grow. So I've got Mr. Derek Hoffman and Dr. Scott Harshman joining me tonight. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me on Skill Dad podcast. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure to be on.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to dive in, learn some things, have a little fun along the way. And Derek and Scott have come together and they've started something that is focused on all the things that I just laid out, helping guys like us learn some of those things that we can then go and apply and get better at in a number of ways. We're looking at health, lifestyle, and you've started Ignite Performance and Health. That's your organization. Is that right?
That's us, yeah. We do a performance enhancement and health organization.
Nailed it on the first time. Wow, this is a good day right here. Well, I'm excited to learn more about kind of where that came from, some of your background. Both of your dads, right?
Yeah,
I thought
you actually
so.
hit me. I'm 40 and my son will be 9 in less than a month. So
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you hit me right on.
Love it.
40. I'm 44 with an 8 and an 11-year-old, and I'm pretty sure they're both mine, like 90, 95.
Oh, they definitely are. Yeah, they have.
Okay, cool. Don't have to edit it. It was, sometimes the camera, I was like, wait a second. Did I get that right? Awesome. So I got you. 9-year-old and you're 40. I've got an almost 10-year-old and just turned 40. So we're right in that bucket.
There we go.
Well, I want to pass the torch to you, gentlemen. You're pros on podcasts. I'm looking forward to learning some things from you, and just maybe an intro about yourself, and we'll take it from there and just have a good conversation.
Sure. You want to start, Scott?
Sure. I'm Dr. Scott Harshman, co-founder and medical director of Ignite Performance and Health. I'm an anesthesiologist by practice. Been in anesthesiologist for about 10 years now, after fellowship and residency training. And really been a lifelong athlete. I was played, college football, all those type of things, and thought I was fit. And then, the world catches up with you, being, getting through your career, becoming a dad, all those great things, just kind of eating all those things. And so, yeah, fully embrace that. And that's why I'm glad that Derek brought this idea to me, because I was full on 40-year-old. You got the pooch in the middle there, the beer belly, whatever you want to call it. And, just not feeling old, feeling run down, not getting, just like, is this really what 40 is? And Derek brought this idea to me, and it's been the world difference. And so I'll hand it over to Derek before we explain the full program. But without Derek, I mean, it's this is all his baby, and I'm just happy to be along with it.
Love
Thanks. So my name's Derek Hoffman. I'm 44. I'm a dad of 2 girls. So it's estrogenistan around my house. Got an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old. I've been in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community for about 25 years. Fitness has always kind of been a part of what we do. I was in the Army for about 5 years. I lived in Afghanistan after that for about 4 years. So being fit has always kind of been a thing. I have yo-yoed just like every other man in his life. It's sometimes you've got a lot of time and you've got a lot of energy, and then sometimes you're putting a lot of time and energy into your career, family, whatever it might be. As I got older, I had some injuries, had dealt with a lot of back problems, went from working out every day, being really active, to not being able to do anything. Went up and down. As I got older, what used to work to get me back into fighting shape just didn't work anymore, because I was getting older and it was getting tougher. Around 4 years ago, I started using testosterone replacement therapy as a way to try and augment some of that. And really what I discovered was that if you're willing to go through kind of the rigmarole of hormones and kind of figure out what's true and what's not, and how to do it correctly and safely and in a healthy manner, it can really be a quality of life improver. There's a lot of stigma around testosterone. There's a lot of stigma around what you would call traditional steroids. And what we sought to do with Ignite Performance and Health, and we'll get into this a little bit later, was to really provide folks with 3 major things. Number one is to give you a trusted partner and a healthcare provider that can walk you through using that testosterone in a safe, responsible, and effective manner. Also, guys that know how to lift, weights, that do strength training in the gym, that understand how that builds lean muscle mass, and how that prolongs our life, how it helps us live better, stronger, and longer, and how to use nutrition in a way to support that lifestyle, in a way that's going to help you out. So what we've done is we've put these what are traditionally 3 separate industries together, in a way to help men transform their lives, even in their 40s, to live, like I said, better, stronger, and longer.
I'm curious. I have a couple questions, and thank you for just the setup with both of you. So Derek, you had mentioned you hit the yo-yo, and then Scott, you hit 40, and you're like, wow, this is really what 40 is like. I told Derek this last time we had talked. I was like, I kind of poo-pooed the concepts. I was like, I hit 40, it's going to be no different than before. This is my experience. It's all I can speak to. It was different. It hit. It was like a weird button just went off. And it's like, okay, some things feel different. So knowing that we've got some people that are listening at various places, some of them haven't hit 40 yet, and maybe they were like me and they're poo-pooing it. And then some have probably nodding their heads like, yeah. But don't necessarily know exactly. They know they want to do something, but they don't know exactly what that is. So, we can talk about the nutrition side, and I've been on a path that, for me, I wasn't eating enough. And so a lot of my pooch came from not eating enough. I was essentially starving myself and getting more fat. So now I'm actually eating and haven't lost weight, but lost inches and feel better and stronger. And like, that's just a basic shift for me. But here's a setup question. Um, and hopefully everyone can resonate with like, well, why? Why does it matter? I mean, if you're concerned about that, well, you probably already got off this podcast. You probably already nodded your head. You're like, yeah, okay, I'm feeling it. We talked about our kids. We want to be in it for them, and we need to be there. But from a testosterone perspective, just starting with that, what is the normal levels, if you guys know this, of where people are today versus even where they were like 10, 20 years ago? Because our diets have changed. And I know that shifted naturally. So I'm just going to throw that one out.
So let me start, because he's already got his doctor hat on. He's going to make me, if I go after him, I'm going to sound really, it's going to be a layman explanation.
Fair enough.
So the long and the short of it is, the normal rate, if you go get your testosterone checked with your doctor, or with us or with anybody else that can get those lab orders done for you, the normal range testosterone is generally around from 300 to 1100. So if you've ever gotten your blood work done, you've got a left and a right bumper. And if you're in the middle, you're green. And if you're outside of it, you're red, blue, purple, or some other people eater kind of color. But suffice it to say, 300 to 1100 is a really, really big range. Okay. That's not like cholesterol. This is if you're really below this level, that's a problem. And if you're way above this level, that's a problem. And anything in between, you're fine, right? You're not fine. So I'll just put it this way. Most guys, and after the age of 40, statistically, your testosterone drops 1% to 2% a year. You generally plateau and you hit your maximum around the age of 19, 20. It's kind of gone downhill from there, but at 40, it really starts to plummet a little bit. I'll tell you this, and I'll let Scott talk to the medical side of it, but most guys around 40 test somewhere between 400 and 500. And their doctor will say, yeah, you're fine. And you are fine. If that's where you want to be in life, that's okay. You can be fine. But I will tell you right now, the difference between 400 and 800 is like making $100,000 a year and making $350,000 a year. They're not the same. It's a quality of life improvement that is substantial. It's noticeable. And it's something that I think everybody should have access to. And the thing is that testosterone has a really big stigma around it, right? Because everything that we generally know about testosterone, what we call steroids, it comes from the bodybuilder world, and that is inherently abuse, right? Like those guys are abusing testosterone and other compounds, and they're using it in a really irresponsible way. That's their decision. I'm not here to badmouth it. I'm just saying that from a health perspective, it is not exactly like the longevity mecca to abuse testosterone the way they do. What we do is we try and figure out, and we don't try, we do through math, through measurement, and through science. We look at your blood work and we figure out how you in particular respond to testosterone, and then how much you can take on in that normal ethical range before your blood work and ill effects start to take place. And then we kind of dial you in right under that. We get you your maximum quality of life without any ill effects. But comparatively, our testosterone has been dropping. Historically, it has been dropping. And that's just, you can look at statistical averages and you can see, and it could be due to a number of things. Could be lifestyle, could be food. It's kind of a chicken or an egg question, right? Like, is it because we are so comfortable now, or is it because, evolutionarily, we no longer require as much testosterone? I'll stop there and turn it over to Scott.
Well, I think more because Derek's right about everything that he hit on there. I think the reads like more to the decline, like we had the historic decline. I think does have absolutely to do with lifestyle and obesity, to be frank. And that is, so if you think about it too, and that's, why we marry not only testosterone, which I'll get into in it, because I think my story about coming to testosterone and the injuries and that is informative and pretty typical. And that's why it is why I say that. But but just a step from that, like why we incorporate weight loss medications as well is because, we have hijacked evolution, right? Like you used to have to forage and gather and hunt and all those things to get a morsel of food. And, and now we can go to the 7-Eleven and get whatever you want, right? In high fructose heaven, right? And that increases your obesity rate and all that. And the reason that obesity leads to a decrease in testosterone is because it changes your blood chemistry and it changes your protein binding of the hormones in your blood. So it's not necessarily, yes, there could be some contribution of that. Okay, our bodies and testicles are literally not making as much as they used to 20 years ago, or, because of environmental factors, those type of things. But more, I think it is just because of lifestyle and what we do to ourselves. We're more sedentary. We are more obese, have those things. We're not using as much energy. So that leads to that decrease of testosterone, because if you find, there are men out there who are in the 40 to 60-year-old range who have the higher normal range of testosterone. Now, those men are generally extremely thin, are very active, all this type of things. They're just genetically predisposed to that. But it's not that they're not out there. But for the majority of us, it's not the case. And so that's what I said to my story. So, I was, college athlete, always, lifted, all this type of things. But then I was like, this is not going to be long term. So I started getting into more endurance, ran marathons and medical school. I always want to do a triathlon. So then, here when I and started in Nashville, at the Y right down there at Brentwood, started swimming,
Yeah.
and to do triathlons. And so I got into that, and that was, my whole thing, but I just kept getting injured and I wasn't losing the weight that I thought I would. I lost some weight because, man, I was, pounding the pavement or swimming laps constantly, riding, running, swimming nonstop. 4 a.m., before I went to work, I was at the Y every day. So I lost weight and I was getting in better shape, but I was getting injured and I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. And I wasn't feeling great about it. It was just like, okay, whatever. And this is what I do. So fast forward, a couple of years, I'm just like, this is what it is, and so I moved here to St. Louis and I'm training for the St. Louis triathlon. And my last my last bike run combination for my full race, I'm getting up there. And I ended up, long story short, had a major calf injury, like just a strain that I just kept pushing through that I thought was just a little bit of a cramp that turned out to be a massive strain. And I limped for a couple months after that and didn't make the race. I was disappointed, all those type of things. And so I, at that point, I kind of like, all right, give it up. Gotta, find something else to do. And that was just like last summer or 2 summers ago, find something else to do. So I kind of fiddled around all that. So then Derek brings me this idea. Lo and behold, I worked with his wife. And so she's like, hey, I think you should, my husband's got a great idea. I think you should talk to him. I think you'd be interested. I did initially heard it. Kind of was like, all right. Well, I don't know. I've heard some bad things as the doctor. I was like, I heard some bad things about testosterone. I don't know about all that. But as the businessman, because I was getting my MBA, which I have since completed, I was like, okay, let me look into this. This sounds interesting. And so I went back and I started doing the research, the medical research, because the business was there, right? I mean, you can't throw a rock and not hit a TRT or a weight loss clinic or any of those type of things, right? So obviously, they're not going to be popping up like mushrooms if they're not making money. So let me look at the medical side of these things. And so I did, and I became convinced. And so I found there's not a lot of literature because there's not a lot of study about it, because it's the same thing with women with menopause. It's there. We just accept it as a normal consequence of aging, that we're going to become more frail and weaker and all of the things that we just accept, or, and so there's not a lot on it, but the data that is there, the good data that shows that, yes, this is safe. One, all right. As long as you keep a few things in mind, and that you're keeping these certain conditions at bay and keeping a close eye on them with monitoring. And it's actually better for your long-term health. And that's not just the testosterone itself, but what we provide with the testosterone, what it helps provide is that increase in lean mass. And that's really what we're going for. So you can take these medicines. Like I said, you can't throw a rock and not hit one of these clinics. But what makes Ignite Performance and Health difference is that we marry not only these medications used properly under physician directed care, rather than just whatever provider you're seeing that day. But we also marry that with nutrition, as well as resistance training, because that is really the key. You need to have the proper fuel to make those changes, and you need to do the proper exercises to build that lean muscle, to build that lean mass that is going to act as your retirement account going into old age. And so there was the most informative study that I found, and this is when I was just like, all right, I'm done. We're in, like 100%. There was a study that showed of all these older men that went into the hospital. They measured all these different things, and at the time of admission, the one thing that was more informative of their in-hospital mortality, dying in the hospital, that admission, or their overall mortality, was testosterone level at the time of admission, much more than age. So just think about that. Just that one number of where their testosterone was at was much more informative and predictive about what their long-term risk of death was going to be than anything else that they measured. Right? Now, is that a chicken or egg concept? Right? We don't know, because is it the testosterone is low because they're sick and they're having issues, and that's why, their body's fighting that off and they're having those things, or is their body having those issues because their testosterone is low and it's becoming more susceptible to all these different things that's going on? The one thing that is key on that, though, is lean mass. And so, these low testosterone and lean mass tend to go hand in hand. So if you have higher testosterone, you'll build more lean mass more readily, those type of things. And so your lean mass is like your retirement account going into old age. The more lean mass you have, the better you will do in sickness and getting through those ordeals that we will deal with as we age, falls, fractures, all those type of medical issues that are going to come up. Having that lean mass, having that bank account there is going to help you through that much better than just being skinny and emaciated, or frankly being obese, right? And not having that lean mass. You're bigger, but you don't have mass. It's all adipose tissue. The body doesn't eat that up. That doesn't function as well in those times as much as lean mass does.
Might be the most basic question of the night, but I'm going to ask it. What does testosterone do? For those that don't know, I mean, it's there. Like you said, there's a stigma around it, but in different levels. But like, what does it do?
And again, I'm going to go first, so that we don't. It's like we're kind of setting you up here. We don't want to let you down
before, but
no, it's okay. I mean, so testosterone makes men more manly. That's essentially what it does too, right? So you have to, when you're dealing with hormone replacement therapy, make sure the person you're dealing with actually does it themselves and knows what they're doing. And that's the best advice I can give you. So what it does is it will. I'll let Scott speak to the medical side. I'll tell you from the just the everyday kind of thing, the everyday guy perspective. Having your testosterone, like a difference between being at like a 4 or 500 or an 8 or a 900 is, that feeling that you get after lunch when everybody's tired and you're going to go into that meeting and everybody's going to be kind of sleepy and it's going to be kind of awful. That's actually just you getting old. And that is our testosterone dropping, and that is just our energy levels dipping. I don't get that anymore. Like, I go all day long. I go 100% all day long. I also, when we get into the gym and when we do things like resistance training that really kind of bring out that manly, that caveman kind of instinct of like, make rock move. It's not the same. I have played with my testosterone levels over the last 4 or 5 years. I have taken them I've taken them to exceptionally high levels that are irresponsible, all the way down to like lower, what I thought would be better, like to the 400s, the 500s, like back to what I thought was kind of normal for a 44-year-old guy. But I'll just speak to this. The difference between 4 and 800. At 400, I go into the gym, and usually about like my workouts are mostly an hour. Okay. At 400, around the 35 to 40-minute mark, I'm ready to go home. I am done. I'm kind of like, man, I'm not even trying to be here today, kind of a thing. And then as far as consecutive days go, I'm a big fan of push-pull leg splits, right? So like I go 1, 2, 3 days, then a day of rest, and then 1, 2, 3 days. At 400, I get to that 4th day when I come back in, or maybe that 5th day, I'm done, man. I'm like, I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my soul. I need recovery. I need to relax. I need a day off. I'm just getting old. Anybody, I know a lot of your listeners out there know exactly how that feels. Like they try and get in there and they try and do a thing. They're like, and I need a rest. At 800, I don't need a rest, buddy. I go like I'm a rocket. I know when I need that rest because I'm at day 6 in a row. I need to take a day off. I'm being responsible, but like I could push it. I don't have that same feeling. I don't drag. And when I'm in there, that's the biggest difference, man. Is because like I have more drive. I get more reps. I get more weight. So not only is the recovery time better, but my strength and my endurance and my power and my push in the moment is better, which allows me to train harder. It allows me to get bigger. I'm 44, man, and I'm putting on solid muscle mass every year without putting on fat. That's not supposed to happen. You know what I mean? That's not our normal study. So that's what being on it is like, man. It's a fountain of youth, really. It's not the end all be all to everything, but it is a quality of life enhancer. Period. I'll turn it over to you, Scott.
Well, one thing, if I can cut in real quick before Scott goes, a lot of the conversations that I have, not necessarily on the microphone and recording in a setting like this, but with other dads, just having the energy to even get your butt in the gym. So like the fact that you're in the gym is clutch. But what I hear a lot, and hey, guilty of it, and many times as well, you get up, you take the kids to school. I'm going to play this scenario out. This is taking out business travelers and all that. You get up, you take the kids to school, you go into work, then whatever your job is. Now you get home, and you do dinner, hopefully you're doing bedtime, and next thing you know, it's 8:39, maybe 10 o'clock. And you're like, even to go to the garage gym is like, whoa. I was like, well, why don't you get up earlier? Well, that's a whole different discussion, right? It's like there's the 4 a.m. clubbers, there's the 5 a.m., all that, but it is around the energy piece and the sustained energy. Maybe you get a good rally for a couple of days, and then like what you said on day 3 or 4, you're like, I'll just take a break right now. And then 6 months later, you got the pooch. So like, I totally get it.
It's a good point.
Just throwing out the kudos for that because, but I think it all correlates with what we're talking about. So thanks for letting me jump in there. But
no, absolutely. And you're right. Cause I was in that, and that's what I say. Like, it was my story, I kind of got off on the medical track, but that was informative. So, I did the medical research on that. And then, and to answer your question directly, testosterone is just, like any hormone, just like for men, it makes men men, and estrogen makes women women. Like, we literally have these hormone receptors, not just testosterone, estrogen, but, thyroid hormone, all kinds of hormone receptors all throughout the body in every single organ system that we have, right? Literally your eyes, your intestines, your hair, your skin, everything, your heart, lungs, everything has these receptors. Okay. And so not just your muscles, right? We benefit from that's why, yes, there are more receptors in the muscles and all those type of things. And we feel better, and it helps build muscle because it helps those transcription factors and all those types of processes that help lay down the muscle tissue when it's stressed. And that's the thing, when it's stressed, because if you don't stress it and you just sit there on your couch and you inject testosterone, you're not going to build muscle, right? Unless you jack your numbers to exceedingly irresponsible numbers, then you're not going to get the weight loss and the muscle growth and all those other type of things that they may claim to do by just sitting there, right? So we provide, it's really just a cheat code, right? And that's how I think about not only testosterone, but also the weight loss medication that we do, because I think they go hand in hand, but specifically testosterone, it's just a cheat code to fuel, to get that little extra. Because you're right, I was right there. I was 40, didn't want to get to the gym. I lifted, in college. I lifted all from like 8th grade all the way up until college, playing football. I know how to lift. I don't need it. This is a completely different program, right? And that's the other thing. We're lifting different, all that. And this has given me the energy to not only I had the motivation to get started because we were starting the business and I was like, want to try something new. And so, yes, had that motivation that you typically get when you're starting something new. All right, great. Yeah. Went out, bought new clothes, right? I was like, bought some new gym clothes, everything I could do to get that motivation, right? And then, but what was different this time, okay, what was really different this time was, one, I had Derek. I had a trainer who knew who was, telling me how to lift. Hey, no, do the lift a little bit different this way, that way, built a program for me, those type of things. So I think that was the number one thing to help that. Now, and you may not always be able to hire a personal trainer, but to find a program that you can do, that you can follow, and that you can document what you're doing, right? That you did this much weight, this many reps, and you can record it so you can look back next time, right? So that you can get that progress, right? You have to do that, right? To stress that. What was different this time is not only having that, was that having the testosterone, I seemed to have more energy. And at first I didn't quite understand it, but I seemed to have more energy. And had that recovery that I could go back the next day. I was able to recover. I could go back that next day. That I didn't have that soreness that you would typically get. The DOMS, the delayed onset muscle soreness, is what they call, a couple days after, when you can't move for like a couple days after your workout, those type of things. Didn't have a lot of that, right? And what the real motivator was, I started to see results in 2 weeks, right? I started to see some tricep that I had not seen. And told you, like, so I lifted, I'd done some work, but like I hadn't seen tricep definition since I was like, 18, right? Like, that type of thing. And I seriously, like, cause my wife noticed, she's like, what's going on with your arm? And I was like, yeah, it's like I'm working out a little bit. It was like seriously week 2. And so then I was like set from then. Then it was like, okay. And then those little wins kept building on themselves. And again and again and again, that they just kept, that it's just a cheat code. It's still hard work. It's still going to take that getting up and doing it, all those types of things. But what makes it easier is knowing that you're getting results. You're seeing those results and knowing that you're doing it right. And you're fueling your body and providing your body with all the things that it needs to get the best results it possibly can.
No, I love it. Yeah, I appreciate fielding that question because, there's some things that I know, and then, hey, I got the right guys to ask. So I'm sure I wasn't the only one. So, I'll be the one to raise my hand. The other thing that comes to mind, you mentioned your wife saw it and she's like, hey, look at that. Right. I mean, that's an added benefit, not only to our confidence, but to our marriage, relate, and as we get older, but the kids are going to see it too. So, I
Oh yeah.
mean, when we look back and when they think back at what daddy did, was he really good at Fortnite? Well, maybe, but he's also fit, right? It's like, whatever it is, they're going to see that, and it's going to help push that along and some habits for them. Um, the other thing that you had mentioned is, like, you found Derek, and maybe people can't find a trainer. Maybe you can, but you haven't looked. Like, you can go check out a local gym. At least find a buddy and start, working out with each other and getting that going. Get the right information, track, because then you can push each other along as well. I think that's important. My moment came, like, my aha moment. Sometimes I forget it and I have to get re-aha, but we'll talk about that in another episode. Is my daughter came to me and she said, Dad, your arms are looking really good. I'm like, oh, thanks. That's really sweet of you, sweetheart. And she goes, but that. And she pointed right at my stomach. She's like, you might want to work on that. I'm like, dang, that was savage. But
it is.
she wasn't
From the
wrong.
mouth of babes.
She wasn't wrong. So I was like, I appreciate the feedback. Thanks. And then my wife laughed and I went up. I was like, everything's about to change. It's about to change. So sometimes we need that moment, but if guys have been listening, they're like, you know what? I'm learning a lot of stuff. Okay, cool. What do I go do? Because now I have no idea what my testosterone levels are. We haven't even, hit much on the nutrition side of it. And really the resistance, we talked about the resistance training, and there's places you can go and get that. Nutrition is like a whole thing of its own, but like, where's the starting place for someone if they're like, you know what? Hey, I don't care that's New Year's. I want to have all year to make it happen. Like, where would you suggest guys go take a look?
So there's a few ways. So first of all, anything that you're doing towards the journey and not the destination is on the right path, right? So like anytime you're getting up and doing something, it's better than doing nothing. I will say that like what we really try and be like a holistic partner that really helps guys walk through the whole path. But at the end of the day, man, if I had to drill it down into some simple things, is check your meds, check your nutrition, check your strength training. And that's the holy trinity of what we're talking about here. Okay. You can go get your testosterone checked with your primary care physician through a TRT clinic, through a boutique facility like us. Come to our website. It's ignitepah for performance and health.com. There's on our resources page. We've got a lot of info up there about testosterone, about weight loss drugs, about training, about nutrition. It's just free. We just want people to have it. At the end of the day, your training and your nutrition are key, and the medicine is the accelerator. Okay. The nutrition, we haven't touched on it nearly enough tonight, but let me just say this. When you go in and you work out and you do strength training, we are big into what's called hypertrophy based training, because what we're trying to do is make lean muscle bigger. We're not trying to be functionally fit. We're not trying to be strong in your big 3 lifts or do crazy CrossFit things or run marathons. We're trying to look better naked. We're doing that through lean muscle mass and burning fat. Because that's what's going to help us live longer. It's what's going to keep our joints preserved. It's what's going to help us get confidence. It's what's going to make our life better. So that's what we do. When you go in and you do resistance training, what you're doing is you're sending this biosignal to your brain that says, okay, look, every day we're doing this thing, or just about every day we're doing this thing. It's really hard. And then and on top of that, we keep failing. Like I push these things and I got to keep going. And then like it gets to a point where I just can't do anymore. And then I have to stop. So I need more muscle. And on the nutrition side, we give your body the fuel that it needs to build that muscle and to retain that muscle. And then on the medical side, we give you some chemical augmentation to really help accelerate the process, because we do view it as like a change management process. And I think like if we're all familiar with the corporate world and change management and that whole thing, like, look, if you don't have the sense of urgency for the change, you're probably not going to do it. I was a smoker for 15 years and I quit when I was 27. So do that math. We won't talk about it anymore, but kind of messed up, right? The way that really changed that for me is I have bad lungs, man. I've always had like asthma as a kid, allergies, weird stuff. I got to a point in my late 20s where I was like, look, if I want to live to see my grandkids, this cannot be a part of my life any longer. It just can't. And as you're getting into your 40s, man, your clock for being able to build that lean muscle mass, for what Scott was talking about for your retirement account, it's the clock is ticking. You're losing out. After 65 or so, it ain't going to be there. You're not going to be building that. So if you want to be here longer, if you want to be here to enjoy those grandkids, if you want to, and if you want to have a good quality of life while you're around them, not just that brittle old man, who's cranky and irritable because he's in a ton of pain and breaks everything anytime he twists an ankle. You got to build some muscle mass, and you got to have this habit and this health. So what we tell people is like anything you can do to get your habit changed is the best thing that you can do for yourself. At our facility, and in our clinic, like we take a very holistic approach. Like I said, like we have an integrative nutrition coach who talks to you about your emotions, your habits with food. We use weight loss medication to really give your mind a psychological break from the food noise. But and we didn't touch on this at all, but where weight loss clinics, they just sell you those drugs as the solution. This is how you lose weight and have a better life. We could go into it, but that's a lie. It's
Brave
a
New
flat out
World
lie.
style right there.
It's
Take
a
pill.
flat out lie. Yeah.
Mhm.
Take a pill and you'll be better. What that pill does is it makes you stop eating, which is great, except if you change nothing else in your life and you stop eating, and you go into a caloric deficit for an extended period of time, you're sending a biosignal to your brain again that says, hey, listen, we're not getting the same amount of calories that we used to. And we really don't need all that. What's the most efficient thing that we can drop? And muscle weighs more than fat. So your body immediately will start dropping muscle mass. You will drop some fat too. And you're going to stand on that scale and you're going to go, look, the scale is dropping. I'm doing good. I'm doing great, right? Actually, no, you're not. You're burning off your muscle mass, you're increasing your risk of osteoporosis as you get older. You're decreasing your bone density, and you're making yourself look like a refugee who's fleeing from a war-torn country. You know, that moon face. Nobody thinks like, oh, I want to be down 40 pounds and they picture themselves looking like thin and emaciated. You picture yourself looking strong, lean, right? Um, nobody says like, and by the way, nobody wants to lose 20 pounds. If we're going to go back to our tagline here, you want to look better naked. You don't care what the scale says. You care what you look like and what you feel like and your confidence. Doesn't matter if the scale says you're 250 pounds, but you look like Apollo. That's great. If the scale says 120 pounds, but again, you look like you just crossed the Syrian border and you're running from the Assad regime, and it's not really that attractive.
Fair point.
So yeah, what we do is we want you to get in habit change, something you can do for a minimum of 6 months. We really want you to be able to change the way you eat, change your habits around lifting. And if you can, and if you have access to it, get the medical acceleration. There's a lot of stigma around weight loss drugs. There's a lot of stigma around testosterone. I try and I frame it to people like this. They say, well, cause I'm not doing bad for 44. I'm not anything that's going to be on a magazine. But like I'm a strong guy. I'm fit. I'm reasonably lean. I'm not overly lean. Like I'm in a comfortable spot. I can live the lifestyle I want. I still take weight loss medication because I don't like hunger. It's really emotional for me. I still know how to eat. I still eat the same amount of calories I would whether I was on it or not. And I take testosterone not because I need more muscle mass, but because I tell people the same thing. I got one of those new Ford Broncos, and I love the stupid thing, right? Like I get it. It's, you either love them or you hate them. But here's the thing. I have a substantial car payment for that Bronco. I could drive a $150 Honda Accord, drove them all through when I was a kid, through my 20s. There's nothing wrong with Hondas, by the way. Don't come after me, Honda people. But I don't. I choose this more expensive car payment because it's a quality of life issue. That is the same reason that I'm on testosterone. And it's the same reason I get into the gym. It's the same reason weight loss medication. It's a quality of life issue.
Now, I think just the couple things that I would say to everybody, like, is eat more protein. I think that's just one of those things that we could, that's the easiest nutrition thing to do, right? We all need to eat more protein, good lean protein, not more McDonald's burgers. McDonald's, but not no more fast food burgers, anything like that. Good lean protein is going to be the key. I also suggest with that to help is to get, good, like a good protein shake, whether that's a pre-made one or a powder, a mix. That's what I do every morning for breakfast is just a protein shake. I get about 42 grams of protein first thing in the morning. And that starts my day. And I think that you get into those habits, I don't feel, as hungry, it's more substantial, keeps you going throughout the day than just the quick carbs and those type of things. So, more protein, less carbs is really just kind of say that, for kind of baseline. Watch the fat as well. We obviously, when we do our nutrition, we do the macros and I would, you can calculate those out. You can find those online calculators based on your body weight, those type of things and what you want to do. So I would, look into those or kind of find those. So you can do that all the way from DIY up to find a nutritionist. But I think the big thing is eat more protein, and honestly, everybody should eat more fiber as well too. That'll help, with that when it comes to nutrition, and lift heavy things. That's really what it comes down to. It lift heavy things repeatedly, to the point of failure, and then do it again the next day, and continue with that in a safe manner. We're not talking about Olympic lifts because that was the one thing I think is different with being on testosterone and lifting at 40 than it is being a college athlete and lifting in the 20s. I never once thought when I was throwing up weight, what's going to happen to my pectoral muscle or my quad tendon or my biceps tendon or any of those type of things. I think about those things now, one, because I'm an anesthesiologist and I see those things over the drape, as they're getting fixed. And I'm like, oh, how'd you do this? Well, I was bench pressing and I went and it's like, oh, yep. Well, there you go. And so you were doing that.
There it is.
And you're how old? So it's one of those things we have to realize that, yes, like age is a number, right? And we help to offset that. And that's what we do. But also we have to realize, age is actually legitimate when it comes to your tendons and your ligaments and those type of things that are not going to be as regenerative. Same thing with your, knees, cartilage, all those type of things. We all have those issues, right? So let's help ourselves as much as possible. So we're not talking about Olympic lifts. We're talking about smart, safe lifts. And that's why I suggest if your audience isn't sure about that, even just any gym can have somebody around there to kind of help you spot, having a buddy as well. It is a great idea, like get extra motivation as well as safety factor there, those type of things. So just really be safe there and be cognizant. If it hurts, in certain ways, you're probably doing too much weight, or you probably going to try to find a different way of doing it. Like that's kind of how we train as well, because we're not trying to break world records, and we're doing this for the long haul, because like you said, we want to be there for our kids, not only in the long term, right? That we're going to be healthy and lean and able to do all those type of things, right? But we want to be there for them now too, and not be, laid up in the hospital or in a sling or in a cast or whatever it may be. Like we want to be that. We want to be there running around with the kids down on the ground, whatever the age may be, all those different things. Get my son into go-karts, we might be starting doing all that type of stuff. Like it's just fun. Like you want to be there for these things, and you want to have that energy and that vigor and all those type of things. And honestly, I do now, right? Before I didn't, I would be tired, and it would be, I'd do the things, I'd be a good dad and all that, but I would just be dragging. Now, I feel like I'm 21, but now I've got money, now it's like I've got time and money and all these things I didn't have when I was 21, and the energy to do all those things. And so that's part of it. Obviously, is the medications that we take, that we prescribe, that's the base of our program. But also, it's just getting into that habit, getting that lean mass, losing that central, that beer gut, that central adiposity, those type of things. It's just being more active. It keeps feeding on itself. That's going to continue to pay dividends long term. Obviously, we contend to help supercharge that with other ways, but just being active and lifting heavy things, I think, is probably the best thing you can do.
That's good. It would be a good thing to everybody go look at the trifecta, right? So you've got the nutrition side, the strength training, resistance training side, and then what are the things? Because some people might not be doing, utilizing testosterone or weight loss things, but it might be like that pre-workout they're getting from GNC that has, who knows what's inside that. I took one for a while and got taken off the market because I had stuff in it that apparently wasn't good. But those are the things. A lot of caffeine
in those things. There are a lot of caffeine in those things. I guess if you're going to talk about supplements, the one thing I would say, creatine, that is probably the most well-studied supplement that is out there. And literally, it basically shows everybody should be on 5 to 10 milligrams of creatine a day for long-term muscle health. 10 if you're a little bit larger. I kind of take 10 because I'm a bigger guy. But yeah, 5 milligrams, it helps build muscle. It actually helps maintain muscle. It's one of those things. So I think that is some supplement that's easily accessible to everybody that can certainly help with this as well.
I used to take a pre-workout in the 90s that was, I'm not going to name names what it was because it's still on the market today. Just it's a little different formulary now. But yeah, they had to take it off for a while because apparently it had methamphetamines in it. So it worked really great though. Like, yeah, no, it really did. Got methamphetamines in it.
Was this the 90s or was this like
it's the 90s?
Early 2010s, because I may or may not know of another one that did a similar thing.
They always so there's you got to be careful with supplements. Pre-workouts can be great. They can give you energy, but really they're just caffeine bombs. You can get the same thing from drinking you can go to Starbucks on your way to the gym and do the same thing for yourself. It's probably just about the same price. I will say the only 2 supplements that we outright recommend are a protein supplement and a creatine supplement, like Scott said. I have been the guy at the supplement store spending all his money. I've spent, hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month on supplements, and 20 plus years into this journey, I now use pretty cheap protein that I know my stomach melds well with, and creatine. That's it. And then, testosterone and weight loss medicine tears appetite. But I will say, just like for anybody that's listening, that if you're gonna do something, yeah, like Scott said, eat more protein, lift heavy things, move more, eat less. Keep it simple, man. Just do something. and there are all kinds of trainers. If you don't have a program and you don't have a friend, you don't have a buddy to work out with, there's all kinds of trainers out there, both in person and online. I suggest you find someone who lives where you live. And I don't mean that in the physical location. I mean that in like they live the life that you live, or they're living the life that you want to live. Um, I always say this: don't trust a bald barber, a skinny cook, or a personal trainer that doesn't seem like they've gone through the same things you have. Because we don't our programs, and what Scott was alluding to, they're very specific. We've taken out a lot of the different lifts that have high injury risk. We recognize that once you get over 40, man, there depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get into a big three power band, or, a strong man powerlifting contest, okay, cool. If you're trying to run marathons, okay, cool. If you're trying to live longer and build lean muscle mass and just look better naked and feel more confident, we're more on that latter option. There are just ways to build all these muscles and look good, build lean mass and feel good and live longer that don't carry that same injury risk. So be cautious. And if you're uncomfortable doing something and somebody's pushing you to do something, you're like, this is probably not for me. Stop. Don't do it. Listen to your gut. Find somebody that listens to you. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Because once you get injured and when we're in this age group, man, it's hard. I tore my ACL a few years ago, and I'm really, really hyper conscious about keeping myself safe in the gym. And I was so mad that I was listening to other people and I was pushing myself to do a thing. And I was really, thought I was being semi-smart, but really I was just, had my ego in it. And that took me out of the fight for a solid year, man. And you can't do that at this age. It's just absolutely crippling. So find somebody that lives where you live.
Good words. Last question. It can be a quick one. And then, camera does its thing. It's mad. So you can, it's good. You can, you mentioned earlier on, so coming from the medical field, you had some, you were skeptical about some of the information. Then Derek, you've kind of lived it, you've learned it. There's a market clearly because people are popping up around the corner, so, hey, we can go make money. Right. And a lot of us like to make money. But what's this is still a venture. It's still a big task to undertake. So like, what's the driving force to say, hey, we want to go and help men do this to look better naked?
We see it. I have friends that have been involved like that. This idea kind of came about because I have a couple of friends, a man and a wife. And he had been going to the testosterone clinic and she had been going to these weight loss clinics, and suffice it to say, they changed nothing else about their life, right? They're spending a lot of money. They were having some health side effects from doing the stuff the way they were with poor care from these clinics and I don't want to disparage every one of them outright, but to suffice it to say, they have a quantitative model. Okay. As many prescriptions as they can get through, as many people as they can get through, the better. We have a qualitative model, and we kind of came up with this because we said we want to provide real care and partnership to people, and we're not going to make as much money. We're not going to have as many clients. Scott and I still want matching Ferraris, but it may take longer. But at the end of the day, what's been the real pleasure, because I'm the guy, I'm in there every day. I'm working with clients right now. And we're now to the point, we've been open about 6-7 weeks, to the public. And we're getting clients that in just 6-7 weeks now, because of the totality of the program, are really starting to see results. And it feels so good to just help people like start to feel good, because they've all gone through these things. They've tried these things. They've spent money on these things, and then they don't work out. And then you get even more depressed. And then it kind of spirals and you quit, and it gets harder to come back the next time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that this whole idea spurned around the fact that, like, if you want to make real, rapid, progressive change, you have to have the diet, you have to have the training, and the meds really accelerate things. And that's what we want to offer to people, is just this totality of care. Because I saw the abuse. I saw what happens when people say, yeah, just take this testosterone, man. It's like a magic pill. It's going to take all these things for you. I see the same thing with the weight loss. Just put this shot in you. It's like a magic wand. You'll lose all the weight. The thing is that at the end of the day, all those things are kind of predatory, because if you don't change all those things, if you don't strength train to build the lean mass, don't get your nutrition right, you're just spinning your wheels. You're buying an idea. You're not buying real change. And the difference between what we are selling and what other people are selling is we view the drugs as a tool and not a solution. The solution is the whole life change, is the habit change. The drugs are a tool to accelerate it, but the habit change and the life change is what's important.
Yeah, and I will echo that same thing. What it was for me was I went to my primary and got my first labs. I wanted to do this the everyman way. And yeah, my labs were low, and he prescribed me a dose. He didn't know necessarily what he was doing. It wasn't his fault. We don't get taught this in medical school, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, unless you go into endocrinology, and even that, like, they're not focused on these issues specifically. So, and so then I went to one of these clinics that's around here that'll remain nameless, and was kind of skeevy, and only open, like 3 days a week for a couple hours and all these type of things. It was just real, so I wanted to see what this was, I wanted to do it. So going through that and knowing that, yes, it can be better, than that. This is legitimate medical treatment that is not being offered to the broad public, or the broad public is scared of because of X, Y, and Z, or, reticent to do. I said, it's not right. We should do this for every man. Every guy should feel the way that I do, feel this good, this much energy, have all these things. And then, so that was what really kind of started and kicked us off and all that. And then, as Derek said, seeing our clients come in, and specifically the one I think we're both thinking of, he had gone to another clinic and had done had been really put through the ringer. Okay. And he comes to us, and I mean, literally was just a defeated puddle of goo sitting in my clinic. I mean, and I told him this the other day. I mean, that's literally what he looks like sitting there. And we got his numbers. And what was crazy about it was that because the prior clinic had messed him up so much, his numbers were way above what we would treat. Right. And so we still haven't even prescribed him medication, or testosterone, at least, because he's above level. So it's not just, and again, it's so fast forward to literally just, was that this week, Derek, or last week it was that we were both in there, and he's in there. And I mean, you can just tell, just he's glowing almost in terms of just his change in energy. You can see he's happy. He's in it. He's talking. I mean, he's just a completely different person, a 180 from where he was. We have not given him any medication. We've not provided any of those other things. We're just waiting him to get back to a safe level that we can continue to treat, but it's completely changed him. So it just really shows that it's not just the medication that's doing it, right? It's the whole program. It's him getting his nutrition right, him getting getting the exercise, getting the lift, all those type of things. In just a few short weeks, it's completely turned him around. And it's great. I mean, it just revitalizes you. It's one of those things, like, yeah, it's a slog to start any new business, right? Especially we're both working full time, we're both dads, all those type of things. And now we're doing this as our hobby, right? A very expensive hobby at this point. And so it's nice to get that satisfaction, to be like, all right, yeah, we're doing the right thing. We're improving not only his life, in the short term, but in the long term as well. And probably saved him from very significant complications down the road, to be frank. But that's, so that's what continues to keep this going, is seeing those little wins. I mean, that's just what I could say. It's, again, change management, just like Derek said. It's those little wins. It's those little victories that continue to fuel the fire, to keep you going. And that's, in life, in the gym, and in whatever it may be. That's truly what I've learned to embrace, is just those little wins.
Love it. Love it. That's another question I probably should ask at the beginning. But at the same time, I mean, you guys are knowledgeable. You're fun. I can imagine coming in and working with you guys. And I know there's really a lot more to dive into, but I'd encourage everyone to go. It's your website's ignitepah.com, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Because, they've got resources out there. Go check it out. and look at the program and see what's going on. If any of this clicked, and if you are 58 minutes into it, something's clicked for you. So go check it out. But Derek, Scott, I really appreciate you taking your time, being on the podcast, sharing some of your knowledge and stories and insight. And like you said, don't trust the bald barber or the skinny cook. That's why I like to talk to dads too, because look, this group here, we're all about the same age range. We're living very similar paths, so we can get what we have going on, and that's why I love talking to guys that are in the same boat, and to learn from. So thanks again, guys, for being on here, and really appreciate you.
Thanks for having us, Zach.
Pleasure to meet you. I had a great time.
Awesome. And next time you're back in Nashville, look me up. I'll be here. I'm not going
Absolutely.
for a while, so
Absolutely. Will do.
awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon, I'm sure.
All right.
Take care.
Well, guys, you've been on the podcast this long. I know you've taken something away. Just like when we have these stories, this particular one is a little more on point with a specific topic. And I asked them why they're doing what they do. And I want to share with you why I thought this was important for all of us, myself included. I had shared what I'm doing. So my wife is nutritional coach background, so she's putting me on macros, and I was like, really? I can't eat that much protein. I can't do blah blah blah. I don't like the word can't, and that's where I was. And so pot and kettle conversation. The reason I'm so fired up about this is because when I go out on a baseball field and I'm coaching my little league teams, I see the dads that get in and I see the dads that don't. Like, there's some energy discrepancies. When I'm, places with my kids and I see the ones that are engaged and the ones that aren't, there's some energy, potentially lifestyle discrepancies. And I can see what maybe I don't want to be. And I think a lot of you, when we talk about the skills we can build, the things that we can do, we got to have the energy for it, boys. We got to have the energy for it to stay after it. And also the health. If we got 9, 10-year-olds running around, my youngest is 3, I'm going to be 47, almost 48 by the time he's 10. So I want to be moving. I want to be that coach on the field, and I want to be there. And not only that, but when I'm older, I don't want them to have to drag me around or take care of me because I screwed up right now. I want to set them up for success. So this is all about what we can learn that then we can pass on and set up for success. I want to do it for me, and I want to do it for them. And so, hey, we look at that trifecta that Derek talked about and that Scott talked about. How's our nutrition? What are we doing to actually get some of that strength training in there? And hey, what are some of the tools that we can utilize that are going to help us to do that better as we age? So some things to consider. I'd say go check them out, ignitepah.com. If anything, they'd just be fun to be around. So go meet them if you can, connect with their team and look at their resources. But at the end of the day, I hope you can take something away from this conversation that you can immediately go look into and apply so that you can stay in the fight and you can bring the heat and whatever you're going to do tomorrow and the next day after that on your journey to becoming the skilled dad.